Welcome back, Mission Driven Moms. I want to tell you about this super awesome book we just found. We were at the library and my husband grabbed this book, The Four Doors by Richard Paul Evans, and I have this super fun idea of what I want to do with it. I read it that night. It's pretty short. It's a pretty easy read. And I was absolutely blown away by all the similarities between this book and The Mission Driven Life. And I'd never read it before or seen it before. And there's several common themes and ideas that run through both the books. And so I thought it would be super fun if we had an ongoing discussion about this book in the month of July. We're not going to do any Facebook Lives during July because everybody vacations and they're taking off. So if you're in the Mission Driven Mom Mastermind Facebook group, then this is the book that we're all going to grab and we're going to discuss it all month because that's something that we can do on the road. And it will reinforce what the Mission Driven Life says, and it will be the topic of some really awesome conversations. And if you're not part of that group, I highly recommend you get it anyway, compare it to the Mission Driven Life, and get serious about your own mission journey because Richard Paul Evans says some things that are really insightful and awesome and that really complement the Mission Driven Life. So the reason that he wrote this book, I wanted to share a couple things out of this book with you to kind of help you understand why it's so awesome, why I want you to read it. So he's at this book signing and a teacher comes up to him and hands him some money and says, "My students raised this money for your foundation." He started a couple different foundations, which is awesome. He does a lot of charity work. And she says, "Will you please come and thank them and talk to them for a second?" And he knew he was going to be in the city for another day. So he's like, okay, that would be fine. I'd be happy to stop by the school and do that. So he shows up the next day at the school and the school district got word that he was coming. And so they were busing students in from other schools and the whole entire auditorium was completely filled with all these youth. And they walk up to him and they're like, "Okay, you've got an hour to speak to these youth." And he's panicking. He's like, "I don't have any idea what to say to them." And he says, "As I frantically considered what I would say to this room full of students, the idea came to me to share with them everything I wish I knew when I was their age. That's precisely what I did. For the next hour, I spoke from the heart, and the teens sat in complete silence. About halfway through my talk, I noticed that some of the youth were crying. When I finished, the students stood to applaud and then lined up to meet me. Some of them wanted to share with me their own stories and struggles, and some of them just asked to be hugged." So this turned into giving this same talk. He called it the talk. He gave it over and over and over again to all different kinds of groups all around the world for the next 5 years and eventually sat down to turn it into a book. And it is about life mission. He calls it mission. He says that we all are called by God to do a mission, and the 4 doors are kind of the symbolic things we need to walk through in order to be able to do mission. And there's a lot of common themes there. I love it because in the introduction, when he's talking about, how did I kind of get to this place, he says, I'm a novelist, so people think that I must read novels all the time, but actually I don't. I love reading biographies. And after I'd read, I don't know what he says, 100 or 200 biographies, I realized that in the lives of these great men and women, they always talked about feeling called by God and having this mission, that they had a purpose in life that they needed to accomplish for someone else. And I was just kind of, you can imagine, kind of freaking out when I read that, like, oh my heavens, that's exactly what happened to me. And I read all these stories and they really did have life mission and so many of the things that we talk about. Now, he doesn't have the 7 laws and all the details and all that kind of thing that I put out in the Mission Driven Life. It gives kind of more concrete direction. But many of the principles and the ideas that he talks about really parallel because they are true principles, and we run into those true principles every time we search out truth. So he tells some really awesome stories. He tells about his really, really difficult childhood. It will just break your heart. He talks about this incredible experience that he had when he was trying to get his first book out to bookstores. He was one of the first people to self-publish. He's probably the most successful story of self-publishing in history. And I don't want to spoil those stories for you, especially the one where he's at convention, and he's trying to push out his book to the booksellers. But there's a couple quotes from him that I put up in the group and that I even have put up on my mirror that are really inspiring to me. So I want you to have this book. It is worth buying. It's not going to cost you much on Amazon. And I want you to read it this month and come to the Facebook group and talk about what you're learning from it. This is the kind of thing that we're going to do when the Academy launches in the fall. We have discussions on great works regularly. We'll get a little foretaste of that this month. I want to tell you what he says here at the beginning before he talks about foundations and then he talks about the 4 doors. But this is what he says about life mission, and I just want you to hear it from another voice. There are many people that say it, but he says it so beautifully. I believe that the greatest thing that all humanity has in common is the desire to make their lives matter. In the last 2 decades, I have met thousands of people and heard many of their stories. Far too many are living what Thoreau termed lives of quiet desperation. They live far below their own potential for joy, accomplishment, and power, caged in the prisons of their own unknowing. The 4 Doors is about how to live life joyfully with freedom, power, and purpose. I have witnessed the powerful effect each of these doors carries in both my own life and the lives of those with whom I have shared this message. So, super excited for us to read this and discuss this book together. It is really valuable. It will really inspire you, and it will confirm what you've been learning about and what we've been talking about with Life Mission. In the Facebook group especially, and it really parallels much of what I've said before, much of what's in the book. If you don't have that book yet, please go to themissiondrivenmom.com and grab your copy of The Mission Driven Life. And please join the group if you're not a member yet, so we can discuss this book with you and get to know you as part of our community. And remember that as you live those 4 foundational laws, you are preparing yourself for a great work that God has for you that only you can accomplish. Take that challenge, live those laws, and become the person you were meant to be and fulfill your own life mission. Thanks so much for watching. Please share this and pass it on if it was helpful, and we'll see you next time.